Greetings! Very excited today. We have the Nova Sorceress starter build for patch 2.4. Going to be one of the better builds for a ladder start, in fact, and one of my favorites, so let's get going. So why might we enjoy using Nova as a starter as compared to, say, leveling Hydra or some other class at the ladder start? Well, first off, the Sorceress is just plus skills based character, so you can pretty much run without any plus skills and still do very well by just putting points into your skill tree, which is quite nice, point number one. Then Nova itself is really early on in the progression. He unlocks at level 12, so this is quite early in the leveling progression. It means you can start using your main ability rather quickly. Newly to patch 2.4, Static Field is a synergy, which means now earlier on you can start putting points into Static Field to kind of energize your Nova. By the time you are able to put points into that, it will already have some base level of DPS increase, which means it will scale a lot better as you are progressing. So this is very cool indeed. Nova itself kind of more offensive in nature because it is a more close to medium range ability, meaning you typically progress through the game a lot more quickly because most monsters won't be able to handle that. However, there are a few circumstances where you might overstep and then die, so you just have to be careful in those instances. It's more of a skill-based check there instead of a safety mechanism like Hydra or Fireball, where you're attacking more at range, might provide you. I also really like that this progression is not going to require you to respec that early on, like if you were speccing to Blizzard or trying to level Blizzard. Typically what players will do is they'll level some other ability and then respec into Blizzard, which you don't have to do that with Nova. So this is another advantage. You only really have to respec when you have to reallocate your skills for like a Spirit Shield or something like that, or if you're changing from hybrid to pure or pure to hybrid, right? So yeah, it's just a really great skill and very hybrid capable. I'm looking forward next ladder to running the Nova Frozen Orb build, and I hope you are too. So one of the biggest downsides with the Nova Sorceress is the mana recovery. Nova itself as a skill is very costly when you fully saturated and you tack on plus the skills. It just gets more and more costly. And remember that we're casting, even with this build, fairly readily. Our cast rate gives us the 9 frame breakpoint. So this is multiple times per second that we are spamming this ability, and teleport, of course. So you really have to consider that teleport doesn't have a lot of skill points invested in it. Its soft point level is not very high. So the cost actually goes down as you put more points into teleport. So the state we're at here is teleport is still very costly, even if Nova is not as costly as it's going to be later on. So the build still requires a lot of mana regeneration. Mana regeneration is a factor of mana regeneration percent and total maximum mana. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Insight. You can use either a polearm or a bow, because you can use the Act 1 Mercenary. I'm recommending the Act 2 just because you get a nice aura with that configuration. And then you're going to run a lot of plus to mana. So plus to mana charms, a ring, the Silk Weaves are going to give you some, the Spirit's going to give you plus to mana. One note here on the ring, while this is a FCR and mana combined ring, you can drop the Nagel ring and separate it out into a 10 FCR and then separate plus the mana ring. That would be cheaper. What if your mercenary dies? In this case, you don't have the mana recovery that would help you out. And even when your mercenary is alive, this level of mana recovery may not cover your mana expenses for longer fights. So we have to have other means of mana replenishment to help us out. And one of the big means is plus mana after each kill. And you're going to get this from the Silkweaves and the Wealth chest piece. Having a tier rune is going to help significantly. And if you want to go for it, the Lore Helm. Worn is going to be a nice piece indeed. Now the test footage you're seeing is actually with a perfect topaz socketed helmet, just to show the weaker version of the build. However, I would actually recommend running a Lore Helm to get the extra plus skills, plus mana after each kill as well. It's very nice here. There is also an affix on the Night Smoke with 50% damage taken goes to mana. So like I was saying, if your mercenary dies, you're under duress, you're taking damage, these affixes is what's going to sustain your mana so you can gracefully exit combat. Aside from that, this particular build, we have a lot of resistances, so we're running the Mosers with double perfect diamond. You can run cheaper is going to be the Ancient's Pledge, Night Smoke belt with plus to resistances. We're running a chromatic amulet. You can craft a chromatic amulet up to plus 20 with perfect gems, I believe. So that is also an option. So a lot of good things going on here. We're running this Spirit plus the skills, faster cast rate, hit recovery are going to be quite nice here. And then the Mage Fist we're wearing for faster cast rate as well. A little bit of recovery with the plus fire and mana recovery. So as mentioned before, we are running the Neighbor Ring. This puts you anywhere from about 188 to 260, depending on if you're wearing the 3-socket helmet or not. MF, which is quite nice. We're also running the Act 2 Combat Mercenary for the Prayer Aura, which will help counteract poison, keep you tipped off from those little chip damage, which in my opinion saves a lot more time than you would think. And one of the other things is with the Nova skill, we do want enemies moving towards us to get in range of our Nova. So there will be some enemies that are like elites that are fast, enchanted, and very aggressive, and those may be a little bit more difficult with the Prayer Aura as compared to like a Holy Freeze Aura, for example. However, I found at this level in the starter progression, Prayer to be the best choice of Mercenary. You can run an Act 1 Mercenary, which was almost comparable to the Act 2 Mercenary. Very high DPS, gives you a lot of CC, especially if you go the cold Act 1 Mercenary. It's an easy way to get like a higher level insight in if you have a nice bow base to spin the 4-socket on, then trying to trade for a polearm or whatever. However, it's a good mercenary, just not quite as good. And while the Rattle Cage isn't required for the mercenary, I just felt, you know, the Monsters to Flee, Crushing Blow was just a really nice combination to help you be able to kill single target boss scenario. So if you do want to do a little bit of bossing to vary up your play experience, this is a great way to do it. But now you're like, Craddock, this gear, it looks really expensive. And I will agree, the Mage Fist, the Night Smoke, you know, a couple of these pieces might be harder to get earlier on in the seasonal progression. So just do as best you can, getting to this point, progressing to this point, and you'll have a good time. We're going to transition now into looking at like bare bones start of season. What do you do? In my opinion, you would farm Countess in Act 1 to get runes. Tier rune would be highly valuable if you could get, you know, 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. Tier runes, you can actually buy an axe from Act 1 or Act 2 that has 3 sockets, so you can get a +6 mana after each kill there. You can get a +4 mana after each kill helmet here. And this affix is what's going to preserve our mana when we don't have the Insight weapon early on in the season. Even if you don't have any supporting gear whatsoever, you can buy a 3-socket large shield from Farah, I believe that's Act 2. and put some flawed diamonds in it, and you have a great resistance item before you get to Act 5 for your Ancient's Pledge, right? So getting a stealth chest piece, faster run walk, gets you a base level of faster cast rate, hit recovery, so it's going to be a great piece going forward. And then aside from that, just look for plus mana items, FHR, resistance items, faster run walk if you can, charms that have stamina on them, always great, you know, resistances plus the mana plus the life. Just fill in the gaps pretty much. Your mercenary will be the same, a prayer aura mercenary with plus to resistance items, and if you know, just slap on whatever best polearm you can find for him, or spear, you know. So, and there you go. The reasoning for keeping our cold resistance low, or even the poison resistance, if you don't happen to find like a belt that has poison resistance, you don't need it, because you can use the potions from, I think it's the thawing and the I'll put it up on screen. Those type of potions from the vendors can give you an extra 50% resistances for poison and cold. So this is why we favor fire resistance and lightning resistance earlier on in the ladder. And this is still a great build, even though the cast rate is rather low. Just starting out, getting through the game, this will work. Skill points. One cool thing you can do now with the Nova Sorceress is put a lot of your points into Static Field, because it is a synergy now with Nova, and the damage output of Nova will be greatly increased when you finally get to it. So earlier on, you're going to be using like a staff that gives you, plus the firebolt or charge bolt or whatever, just to get through Act 1. While you're doing that, you're putting points into Static Field, and this will help you out as you go on. No more than 8 points, I found. Otherwise, you will not have maximum DPS on your Nova. Just keep that in mind. Another setup that's quite nice, if you do have gear, if this is not your first character and you're just starting the ladder anyway, I would recommend running like a death set for resistances, cannot be frozen. You'll be running an Angelic's 3-piece, I believe, so the wings, the ring, and the weapon, and this will give you a lot of plus mana, a lot of plus life, plus to all skills. Will be quite nice. We'll still run the stealth chest piece, but we're going to run a slightly different setup for our mana per kill. We're going to run a raw rune for resistances, and if you don't need that, obviously you would go double tier for the plus mana after each kill. And then you also have mana after each kill from your shield. So cool thing you can do is run the wall of the eyeless here, which gives both FCR and mana after each kill, plus resistances. So it's kind of cool piece. And yeah, you'd have more advanced charms at this point, obviously. So that's how you make up the difference. And it's just a quite, very similar skill point allocation, but you just have more power behind your attacks as you go through the game, and more ease of use utility because you can't get frozen, and you can use your teleport a little bit more often, so it's quite nice as well. I do like this composition. There is a third composition which I did not really test out. However, it is here. If you want to use the Aratha set, just get some easy resistances, max resistances. This is a play. It's not really something I would typically use for a Sorceress. However, you can combine it if you happen to find a nice plus the Nova mana after each kill orb. This is a composition you can run as well. So that's about it. There is a mention here is that there is another starter build which is going to be very popular next ladder, and that is the Hydra build. And Hydra, I can say, is a safer skill to use typically. It is slower clearing than the Nova, but it is safer because you're not as close to enemies. You have the option to be farther away, and it costs less mana overall. However, it is a level 30 skill. So this is why I am preferring Nova. You get to it sooner. It impacts your gameplay a little bit quicker. However, Hydra progression is still very nice. I do really enjoy this, not only because just for Nova, but the progression, because you can go from Nova into like a budget Nova setup, and then you can do hybrid Frozen Orb if you want with Nova. That build felt really good to play. And then even in-game, Nova Frozen Orb still felt really nice. So gearing-wise, progression-wise, there's less respecs. It just feels smooth. I enjoyed it.